All right, so now we're going to turn our attention to long-run economic growth, the idea of no fluctuations in real GDP over time. Now, again, this is a conceptual thing. It's not practical. It's not what actually happens. It's what could happen. That's what we're looking at. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a concept called natural real GDP. Natural real GDP. Now, before I give you a definition for natural real GDP, I want to remind you of a concept that I brought up a couple videos ago and also that we learned a while ago called productive capacity. Productive capacity. This is the idea that there is an amount of stuff that a business can produce based on how many resources they have. The limitations of their resources limit how much they can produce. And it's the same thing for an entire economy. A whole country has a limited amount of land, labor, and capital. And therefore, they have a limit on how much actual output that they can produce. Think about it maybe kind of like a movie theater. Let's say that there's a movie theater, and in one of their auditoriums where they show, where they have a screen and show movies, let's say that there are, let's say there are 200 seats. So 200 seats in the movie theater. Now, at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, if they're showing a movie in that movie theater, they're probably not going to sell all 200 seats at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. You know, people are at work, even if it's summertime. You know, not a lot of people are going to the movies in the morning on a Tuesday. And so they are not going to fill this auditorium to capacity. Now, you may say, well, they're not producing anything. They are producing something. They are producing a service. They're producing entertainment for the people who come buy a ticket and sit in these chairs. And so, whenever they sell a movie ticket and those people go sit in those chairs, that is considered to be productive output. It is production of an entertainment service. Okay, so it is production. And the capacity for their provision of entertainment service at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday for that movie is 200 units. The most they can sell is 200 units. But the thing is, in reality, in the short run, based on demand and production costs, they may not sell all 200 seats. And so from 10 a.m. on Tuesday one week until 10 a.m. on Tuesday the next week, it could be that one Tuesday that they'll sell, 57 tickets. And then a week later on Tuesday at 10 a.m., they may sell 85 tickets. And then the next week after that at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, they may sell, 26 tickets. Okay? And what's happening here is you can see that the ticket sales in that auditorium on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, the ticket sales are fluctuating. And so the production of entertainment, the output of entertainment is fluctuating from one week to the next. It's also going to fluctuate throughout the day. Maybe by noon or 2 p.m., they might sell more tickets. And by 8 o'clock at night, they might sell 150 tickets for that particular auditorium. And so how much they produce, how much output in entertainment service that they produce is fluctuating. It's going up and down based on what time it is, how people feel, the desires of the demanders, the ability to supply of the suppliers. We have fluctuations. That is short-run economic growth. But here's my question. In all of those fluctuations of ticket sales, did the number of seats in the auditorium change? And the answer is no. There were always 200, every week, every time people came in to sit down, there were always 200 seats. Now, Can they change the number of seats? Yes, but when they change the number of seats, that is a long-run issue. And therefore, this is productive capacity deals with economic growth in the long run. This 200 seats is not changing. It is stable. And therefore, economic growth in the long run is concerned with productive capacity, which doesn't really fluctuate. Now, it does go up over time, but it goes up slowly. For example, maybe after operating for a few years, this movie theater may say, hey, a lot of people are coming to see movies. More and more people are coming to see movies. Let's make our movie theater bigger. And they might knock down a couple walls and increase the number of seats in the theater to 300. And now productive capacity has increased over time. But it's not fluctuating day to day. It's not fluctuating throughout the day. Productive capacity is the same. There are 300 seats in the theater. That's our analogy. Now we're going to take that to understand the economy. The number of people in the economy is growing. Our population is growing. But generally speaking, it's growing slowly. We don't have lots of people entering and exiting the labor force constantly. We generally have about the same number of people throughout the year who are in the labor force. Maybe from one year to the next, we might add a few more people. And when I say a few, I mean a couple million or so, maybe more than that. But generally speaking, the productive capacity of the economy, the productive capacity of the overall economy is slowly increasing over time. And here's why. In terms of quantity or stock of factors of production, we are slowly increasing labor in the economy. Our labor force is getting larger and larger and larger. As our population grows, our labor force grows. More and more people. Even though there are people who retire and eventually pass away, we have more people who are being born and being trained up and going into the labor force. So our labor force is increasing. Also increasing is our stock of capital. We have more buildings, more machines, more trucks. Even though sometimes our trucks and our buildings get old and break down and we have to tear them down or throw them away and buy new ones, we make more than we are throwing away. At least for now we are. And in addition to that, we are increasing our use of land. We are acquiring more and more natural resources. And so because our quantity or our stock of land, labor, and capital is going up, that means that our productive capacity is going up in our economy. Also, the quality or the productivity or quality of our factors of production also increasing. Okay? Our workers are becoming more skilled, more capable. I know what you're thinking. You're like, no, it's not the way people aren't don't work as hard as they used to. That's true. They may not work as hard as they used to. They may not wear out their bodies as fast as they used to, but people are staying in the labor force longer. They're waiting longer until they retire. Why? Because they're healthier. And because of healthcare, because of improvements in healthcare, we are more productive. We're able to go back to work faster. Years ago, if you had appendicitis and you had to have an appendectomy, you might be out of work for a week. Nowadays, they can do an appendectomy and you can go back to work the next day or maybe a couple days later. So people are more productive. They stay in the workforce longer and they are able to do more. Why? Because we have machines that allow them to do more. The computers are better than they used to be. I can accomplish more as a professor than I used to be able to accomplish because of my phone that records my videos, because my computer is better than the computer I was using 10 years ago. Capital, our capital is becoming more productive. Our labor is becoming more productive, and our natural resources are also more productive. We're able to get more out of our natural resources. And because our factors of production are increasing in quantity and increasing in quality, we are able to produce more and more output than we used to. So we are slowly increasing the productive capacity of the economy. And it's not fluctuating, it's just going up over time. And that is a question of long-run economic growth. And it's related to an idea that we call natural real GDP. Now, what I need to tell you about natural real GDP is that natural real GDP is a conceptual idea. Actual real GDP, which we measure in the short run, that's the actual amount of stuff that we produced. Natural real GDP is what we are capable of producing. So if the movie theater is capable of selling 200 tickets, that would be the natural real GDP. That's the natural output that they could sell. If they actually sell 140 tickets, that would be the short-run actual output GDP, okay? So natural real GDP is what could be. The business cycle and short-run economic growth, that's what actually is. And we're constantly in economics, and what we're about to do is I'm about to teach you how we make a comparison between what is and what could be so that we can understand how to make our economy better. Okay? All right, let me give you a definition for natural real GDP. The level of economic output that results in full employment and price level stability. And is unaffected by changes in the price level because it is purely determined by productive capacity. If the movie theater decides, instead of charging $8 for a movie ticket, if they decided to charge $10 for a movie ticket, would that affect how many people actually buy tickets? The answer is yes. The law of demand says that as the price of a product goes up, the quantity demanded of the product will go down. And therefore, if the movie theater increases the price of a ticket from $8 to $10, fewer people will buy a ticket. Next question. Would an increase in the price of a movie ticket change the number of seats in the auditorium? If the movie theater decides to charge $10 instead of $8 for a movie ticket, would there suddenly not be 200 seats in the auditorium anymore? Would the number of seats go from 200 down to 160 because the movie theater is charging more money? The answer to that question obviously is no. There's 200 seats in the theater. It is a physical phenomenon. The movie theater can sell 200 tickets. Now, the fact that they raise the price means that they're less likely to sell 200 tickets, but it won't change the fact that they can fit 200 people in that auditorium to watch the movie. And what I'm saying here is this, is that natural real GDP is the level of economic output that is possible because it is purely determined by productive capacity. And here's the interesting thing. That level of economic output, the possibility when we as an economy achieve that level of economic output, we will be employing all of our possible resources. We will be using all 200 seats. We will be employing all of the people, all of the labor that we need. We will be using all of the capital that we have available to use. We will be using all of the natural resources that have been allocated for that time and for that place. And because we are employing all of our resources, it puts us, natural real GDP, when we achieve that level of economic output, we will have full employment. All of the jobs will be filled, and there won't be any extra people trying to get other jobs, because if there's a person available to work, they are being employed. We are at full employment. When we achieve that also, we also achieve price level stability. And so here's what's really cool. We know that two of the goals that we're trying to achieve in macroeconomics is we're trying to achieve full employment and we're trying to achieve price level stability. So in a way, what we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve natural real GDP. We want to produce at the level of natural real GDP because we want to use up all of our productive capacity. We want to be producing at 100% capacity utilization. We want to be producing at 100% capacity utilization. We want our actual short-run real GDP to be equal to how much we can produce productive capacity. And so natural real GDP is this level of production that we're shooting for. When we produce at natural real GDP, we are using all of our resources. And when we're using all of our resources, people are getting the most that they can get. When we put 200 people in that movie theater watching the movie, we are getting the most satisfaction that we can get out of that movie theater. When a restaurant is seating all the people that it can seat at all the tables that it has and making food for all of those people, then the most number of people are enjoying that food. When a pizzeria is making all the pizzas that it can make, we have more people enjoying pizza and getting utility. This is what we want in the economy. We want people out there enjoying what we have. When we have a pizzeria and no one is going into the pizzeria to buy pizza, then they're not enjoying the capital and the labor that's in there and the natural resources that are set aside that are being used for people to have delicious pizza. And so this idea of natural real GDP is the idea that there is an ideal amount of real GDP based on productive capacity. And it doesn't change simply because people don't feel like going to the movie theater or because people don't feel like having pizza or something like that. Okay? All right, so let me give you a few details here about natural real GDP. Okay. First thing I need you to understand, this natural real GDP, full employment and price level stability. Full employment is related to unemployment, and price level stability is related to inflation. We just recently learned that, right? And something that you need to understand is that inflation and unemployment are inversely or negatively related. What I mean by that is this, is that when unemployment is low, usually inflation is high. And when unemployment is high, inflation is usually low. In order to have low unemployment, we usually result in having high inflation. We'll talk more about that later in the semester, okay? In order to have low inflation, it usually results in more people being unemployed, okay? And so there is this ideal level of unemployment and this ideal level of inflation, okay? There is an ideal unemployment rate that results in an ideal inflation rate. At that rate, real GDP will grow at a consistent and modest rate. There won't be huge fluctuations. It'll just sort of grow nice and steady. Real GDP in the economy. The output the stuff that we produce, each year we'll make more stuff and more stuff and more stuff and enjoy that stuff more and more and more, and it'll be consistent, steady, and smooth growth, okay? So at that rate, real GDP will grow at a consistent and modest rate. There's a name for that rate, and you have already learned it, okay? That rate is NAIRU. And if you recall, what this stands for is the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. So it's the rate of unemployment where inflation does not accelerate. Inflation does not speed up at that rate of unemployment. Okay? We get steady unemployment, steady inflation rate. Okay? And is often called the natural rate of unemployment. The natural rate of unemployment, resulting in a level of economic output meaning real GDP, right? Economic output is the stuff that we produce, in a level of economic output referred to as natural real GDP. It is the level of economic output that results in nice, steady growth over time. It keeps the economy at full employment and gives us price level stability. It's not fluctuating really crazy because of changes in the price level, because it's really just determined by how many factors of production we have and how good those factors of production are. Strictly determined by productive capacity, okay? Natural real GDP is based on real GDP in the long run. So, we have the business cycle, which is based on real GDP in the short run, and now we have natural real GDP, which is based on real GDP in the long run, based on the actual factors of production. If there was no money in the economy, but we still had machines, and we still had gasoline, and we still had factories, and we still had computers and chairs and desks, but no money, the amount of stuff that we could produce, that would be the level of output, real GDP, that is natural to the economy, okay? And results in the natural rate of unemployment, the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, okay? Gives us a stable price level, gives us full employment, okay? Natural real GDP is the ideal level of production in an economy that allows for full employment, which we want, and price level stability, which we want. Okay. Now I'm going to draw over here. Just going to kind of draw a smaller version of what we did in the business cycle. Although I'm not drawing the business cycle, I'm going to draw the graph of natural real GDP. Over time, real GDP, so there's no fluctuations. Now, I'm going to draw it as a line. It's going to be linear, but it's not technically linear, but it is upward sloping. But to represent natural real GDP, basically, as time progresses, here's what happens. As time moves on, okay, the months and the years pass, we are getting more factors of production, and we are increasing the productivity of those factors. And therefore, we are increasing over time our productive capacity. What we are capable of producing is increasing over time. And therefore, natural real GDP is increasing over time. And we're going to call this curve right here NRGDP, natural real GDP. Okay? Because what we are capable of producing is getting larger and larger and larger over time. As we accumulate more land, as we accumulate more labor, as we accumulate more capital, and as those things become more productive over time, our productive capacity goes up and natural real GDP rises steadily, calmly, without fluctuation over time.